Okay, we're back. It's July the 12th, 1996. Dad's talking about his return to the States after World War II. He's in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri,
Right.
and this is, now the war is over, okay? The Japanese have surrendered. Um, Yet, my dad is being held in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And how many days has it been now? I mean, you, they're not letting you guys go. I mean, back to your families.
Well, we came home on the 11th of July, the 11th of August, something like that. That, that, well, maybe 12th of August, something like that. I can't remember just exactly uh, the days that it took to process and get to where we were, be released and then get back to Fort Meade. But it was the day that the Japanese capitulated. That's when I got back to Fort Meade and then they sent out to Missouri.
Okay, when you were home, when you got back to the States, you went home one night and saw Mom, because you came back to DC. That's where you were stationed in Fort Meade. So you came home the first night.
Right.
Then you came back to Fort Meade, and then they wanted to ship you out, but you somehow got around that for three times they tried to ship you out, and three times you held yourself back. So you had about a week of going home to see Mom every night.
Right.
They finally caught you and sent you out to Fort
Missouri.
Lurie. But now you did have 30 days at home then,
Right.
or
Yeah.
you had 30 days at home somewhere in there.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
And see, of course,
But now you're still,
now all this is after I went back and was shipped to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri,
okay,
that we covered in the last tape.
okay,
Now, I was, one, I didn't have any clothes for training, so I was doing work in the orderly room for the, teach somebody to do the Form 32, the clothing records.
okay,
And one day the captain come in there and he said, Private Ryan Holt, he said, I would like to send you to I&E school. That is instruction and educational school. But everybody was supposed to be a non-com, not still private. But he said, I don't have anybody that I think can handle the orientation speeches that, like you could. So would you volunteer to do this for me? I said, no problem. So they sent me to I&E school. And that was a big mistake for the Army, because they would tell you in no uncertain terms, this is the way the government wants it done. And I would do that exactly. And he said, if you don't do it, you might lose those stripes on your arm. Well, I had a PFC stripe. I couldn't much worry about losing the stripe. So anyhow, I went to I&E school. I'd come back and I'd make my orientation speeches to the company every time.
and what's an orientation speech now?
Tell them exactly what the government wants these troops to do, brainwashing.
So now these are all the troops now, you're talking to seasoned veterans
Right.
that have been pulled off the front lines and are still being held against their wills, I'm
Well,
sure.
okay, some of them were held against the will because they re-enlisted,
Okay,
because they had no place to go.
okay,
But anyhow, these speeches were indoctrination of what they wanted the troops to know and how they wanted to react to different things.
okay.
So I did it just like the government wanted it done.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I did do, I opened everything to an open discussion.
Mhm.
I said, hey, what do you think about that?
Mhm.
What do you think about that statement?
Mhm.
And, hey man, you will get all kinds of reports. But basically, the questions always come down to, when are we getting out? And I said, I'm just as interested as you are. I will find out.
Now, how long is, When you talk about this school that you went to, how many days was that?
Well, it was maybe one training session a week, and then you would repeat that to the troops, you know, something like that.
So you're talking how many weeks now? You're
Well, okay, Elaine, we were there from August to November,
you're talking weeks,
months.
months.
August, September, October, November. And, okay, so now, I'm making these speeches, okay. Now, what happened was that everything always seemed to come back down to one important question. When are we getting out? So I don't know, I can't answer that. But I will try to find out for you. So I made myself up a questionnaire. And I put it in a nice envelope, and I walked around to every company, or every orderly room in our division, company headquarters, regiment headquarters, stuff like that. I went around to all of the different headquarters. I told them I was from Captain Hatcher's outfit, Company I, 121st Infantry Regiment. And I wondered if you could answer a few questions for me. How many troops do you have? So many. How many points do they have? Well, they would start from maybe 120, 130, or 40, whatever it was, on down to maybe 50. Where are these troops? These guys with the high points. Well, some are out there on 120 days furlough, and the next group couldn't be discharged until they came back. Now they would take them, send them to their discharge center, let them go home, then report back. Now that took so many days. And then the next high points would be done the same thing. Well, when I calculated in my mind, I could see where I would be in the service for the next couple of years yet. So I got all these figures together. Then I let go with what I wanted to know.
Yeah, when was this when you left
Well,
go? How long did it take for you to get these figures
Yes,
together?
it took maybe a couple of months to get all this stuff together.
This information.
And was getting up close to November, maybe already November. I can't remember just when.
So you're still giving these orientations.
Right, and I wasn't taking any training. Oh, in the meantime, I went up to the barber shop one day, and I was on the barber chair, and some guy said to me, "Hey, soldier, I know you." I looked at him, I said, "You got me." He said, "You are the guy that gave me my first haircut at Fort Charlemont." I said, "Holy buckets." I said, that wasn't a real crew cut. But anyhow, so, make a long story short, the barber said, "Hey, soldier, how about coming up and working for me?" I said, "Hey, man, all I ever did was cut the guys, the troops. I cut them through the service too, you know, after I was made barber for the, at Fort Charlemont, you know. The way it happened was that this guy, Olson and I, we'd love to get each other gigs so that we could go and heckle, you know. There was something to do. So the way I got to be a barber up there, Olson was standing alongside of me, and this captain was coming down the line. He said, "I need a volunteer to be a barber." I put my foot over like this, shoved Olson, he fell in the company street. He said, "Honest to God, Lieutenant, that's how bitch pushed me." Lieutenant walked over to me and said, "You are the new company barber." So, he took me about 3 flights down underneath Fort Charlemont in a little dingy old room with all these medieval bricks laid up, you know, in certain ways that hold the fortress up. And about the third guy, the first guy was this guy, I think his name was Sidiwasa.
Okay.
And colonel of the depot walked in there. He looked pretty scroungy to me, and he said, "Son, could you cut my hair?" I said, "Yes, sir." So I started up on this side a little bit, and I come up this side, but this side was a bit higher than this side, so I started going up a little bit more. And then this side was lower than this side, so I come up a little bit more, probably on top of his head. He didn't have any hair left. Well, anyhow, I scalped him. So he got up, and he pulled his wallet out, and he looked at his money, and he put it back in and didn't give me a tip. I said, "Well, you cheap so-and-so." Hey. So that's how I got to be barber there. And from then on, no matter where I was in Germany, I would find barber tools. I brought a lot of those barber tools home. They're down in the basement. I had all kinds of razors and little clippers and big clippers and all.
You carried that all the way through?
Yeah. So I would put it in the supply truck, but the guys always needed haircuts, you know. So I put it in the supply truck, and when I worked up anywhere, I
Pull it back
come out.
out.
And it was interesting because many a times I would be out behind the house somewhere, and a motor sail start coming in, I'd run down the base with the guy with the sheet around his neck, and I would go back up and finish the haircut. But
So wait a
anyhow,
minute,
that's
you're
how I
getting
got
off the-
into
oh,
cutting
okay.
hair. So what I did then was that I went up, and he gave me barber tools, and I used my own razors and stuff like that, you know, to shave around their ears and stuff. And I started making more money than the company commander. Because, one, I'd ask the guy what he wanted, you know. I didn't just go 3 minutes and chase him off the chair. Well, the government had all this fancy stuff there, and I'd wear it on their hair, you know. Put all this team of facials when you wanted a facial, and you name it. I was getting tips like crazy, you know. The haircuts were only a quarter.
Uh-huh.
And I was only allowed to make so much. But the tips were, I was sitting on battling money like crazy.
That's good.
Yes, it was. 'Cause
You weren't making anything for the Army.
no, I wasn't making anything from the Army. But anyhow, while I was there, I was cutting hair one day, and this guy from the Air Corps walked in there. And that was unusual, being an infantry outfit. I was cutting hair there, and had a lieutenant. He wasn't supposed to be in my barber shop in the first place, because but you only have to pay a quarter here, you know. And he knew what I was doing. So I was giving him a haircut, you know, and I'd look at this guy with this insignia Air Corps, and he was sitting this way, he was looking away, he wasn't even looking at me. And kept doing, and all of a sudden it hit me was Dave. My brother Dave.
God.
Holy bucket. I brushed the guy off and said, "You're finished." Put Dave on. And he looked bedraggled. He'd been AWOL, I don't know how many days already, getting over to Fort Leonard with Missouri.
Oh my God.
Put him on the thing, I started giving him a shave, haircut, you name it. And then I gave him a facial.
Uh-huh.
And I'm telling you, when I got finished with him, I'm telling you, he felt a little bit better. He stayed with me for a whole week.
Oh, he was like AWOL all that time?
All that time.
Okay.
And we would lay, and there was a bunch of mattresses in our corner of our barracks, you know. And Dave and I would crawl up there, you know, so we'd be out of the way, nobody'd see us, and we'd sit and talk, you know. When the time comes for chow, we get up and wet the chow.
So I assume he wasn't married yet?
No,
He was
But
still
anyhow,
single.
one day we were up there, and here the guys were in there, and Sergeant Carrigan come in there, and he needed some guys to do some work. So this Sergeant Beavers that come to our outfit out of the Air Corps, he said, "Sergeant Beavers, I'd like for you to do so-and-so and so-and-so." And right off he said, "Why in the hell don't you put Reinhold on a detail once in a while?" And I heard this. I come down off in there, walked over his bed, I said, "Get up out of that kind of thing." He wouldn't get up. And Dave was tough because this guy, big rascal, you know, he thought I was gonna get my butt beat. But I knew he was chicken. I said, if you ever put my name in your mouth again, I'm gonna make you eat it. But anyhow, this takes me back to when we were in combat. 3 guys from the Air Corps were put into the infantry outfit while we were doing patrol duty on the Rhine River across from Dusseldorf. Okay. The first night that we were supposed that they were with us, why we were pretty sparse with troops. There would only be 2 of us maybe going on combat patrol at night because we didn't have any more men. So they assigned these guys to different parts of the thing, and they would split them up. Well, anyhow, the first night, Sergeant McManus was supposed to go out with the troops. And there was Sergeant McManus, Corporal Tischmaker, and Sergeant Beavers. They were all non-cops, you know. Of course, all of us guys were privates. So when we got ready to go, and Sergeant McManus was supposed to go with us, he tried to light a cigarette, and he shook so bad he couldn't light the cigarette. I didn't want a man like that on a combat patrol with me, and I told the chief, I said, why don't we just let him stay here tonight, you know, put do the run. And luckily we didn't have anybody with us because we were going down by the river, and Kenny Eversole was in one of the foxholes down there, you know. And that's another story. I won't tell you that one. But anyhow,
Let's not get too far from Fort Meade now.
Okay.
Or Fort Leonard Wood, because I wanted you to tell me what happened there and
Okay.
how you finally got discharged.
okay, but anyhow, all right. All right, I will have to stop right there because that gets into so many things. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
yeah, why don't you stop?
okay, so we're out in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I make the speeches.
Yes.
And when I tell the guy, the day I told the guys that this is the way they're doing the discharges. And I said, the way it looks to me, after I made my speech, that we are in the service to feed a bunch of human parasites. All these officers that don't want to go home yet, they have to have so many men to have so many officers.
Oh.
Now, I said,
And you're telling-
we are the,
So who are you telling this to?
the troops.
And how many of them are there?
Oh, there's a whole company of men there.
Which is how many men about?
Well, that's, okay, there's so many men, period, quite a few. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 3, you know, and always, whatever. There's always so many men, like in a squad, there's 12 men in a squad, there's.
So are you now? You're in a room on a,
We are out in the field,
you're out in the field?
yeah.
And you're
Oh.
talking over an intercom or something?
No, just a whole bunch sitting on the ground.
Okay.
Well, anyhow, I'll start telling this to the guys.
And this is part of your, this orientation still, right?
Yeah, this is part of my orientation now.
Speech, okay, now.
And anyhow, but this came into the question and answer program now.
This is the question answer program, and the questions kept being, when are we gonna get out of here?
When are we gonna get out?
And you said you're gonna find out, and you spent a lot of time, and this
Right.
is what you found out
Okay,
now.
I found out.
Okay.
And of course, this lieutenant now that was put in place a while down, he didn't like me either. Oh, I told him one time, that officers, he said, he demanded a salute. So I said, you know, I want to tell you something. I said, officers that have gained the respect of the men never demanded a salute, they commanded. That's all. You couldn't do anything about it. I figured I earned my freedom of speech, and I'm going to use it.
Right.
So when I told the guys this, and I told them about feeding a bunch of human parasites, what I didn't know was the colonel was standing behind me, an old colonel. And this lieutenant thought, now boy, I poked in my hat this time, you know. When the guys, they wanted a riot, I said, oh, hold the phone. I said, there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. let's do it the right way first. And they agreed. When it was all done.
What was the right way to do it?
Huh?
What was the right way to do it? We'll get to that.
Write a letter. Madeline had said, this is for my wife. Huh?
In a few minutes. Okay, in a few minutes.
What's ready?
She said she wants to rest. So let's try to finish this story up now.
Okay, so I said, let's do it the right way. And I turned around here, this colonel looked me right in the eye, walked over to me, and said, son, that's the best goddamn orientation speech I ever heard in my life. I said, thank you, sir. I checked up on him, and he was one of the old-timey guys, and he didn't like any 90-day wonders.
Mhm.
Oh, he was.
And that's what this lieutenant was.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, what was his name now?
I forget the new guys. I can't even remember his name.
Okay.
But the other one was Bartel, I knew that one. But anyhow, so went back to the barracks. 3 guys volunteered to help me write a letter. This is the letter that we wrote. Madeline had sent me a newspaper clipping.
Mhm.
It said that Senator Meade in Washington was pulling the teeth of the military.
Mhm.
Amen. That's the guy I want to get a hold of. So we wrote this letter. We are men of the 8th Division, 121st Infantry Regiment, so-and-so, and so-and-so. We fought for our freedom. Instead of getting our freedom, we're out here in the hellhole of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, taking dry fine, cutting grass in the hot sun with bayonets, with all the things, gas mask drill, a lot of things, if we'd have done them in combat, we wouldn't be here to talk about it. We were either drafted or volunteered, but we all fought for our freedom, and we're not getting it. Now, if the government can't help us, then just maybe we might have to take the situation into our own hands. Then I had that guy go around the whole division and get signatures. We had, I don't know how many signatures.
Mhm.
We sent this to Senator Meade in Washington.
Mhm.
3 days. Here comes a C-47 sliding into the airstrip, a Senate Investigating Committee. Well, all hell broke loose. And discharges were flying like crazy. My God, our outfit was almost annihilated. Because a lot of guys had high points, like Garrick and all these guys. But one day something happened. We were sent to another outfit. Many of us left. And boy, we were getting all the shit details.
So wait a minute now, you were still there.
Still in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, but now we were moved from one barracks to another outfit, and they had reduced their troops, and maybe they had 2, 3 different
Okay.
companies
So they started shifting you
reduced
around.
down, so that there was nothing but low point men.
Okay. And they were still trying to hold on to you.
Oh, were they ever? And so Sergeant McManus and I used to go up to the discharge center every day,
Mhm.
and we'd watch when a guy would come out and say, "Yeah, I got your discharge. How many points did you have?" He'd tell us.
Mhm.
As long as they had 50 points or more, it didn't make a difference because we still only had 50 points,
Okay, and you were at 50.
I was at 50. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
But one day something happened.
Yeah.
And here there were discharging men with less than 50 points. Hey man, now, went back to the order room to see Sergeant Kelly. I said, Kelly, they're discharging men with less than 50 points. I said, I want you to see if you can find out anything about what's happening with Eddie, All of them said, no, it's not from the doctor for us. I said, okay. They're discharged men less than 50 points, and we're not on the list. Now, we were the guys that caused the problem.
Mhm.
And he knew it.
Mhm.
Had to come from this bunch, But anyhow, I said, give me the keys to the Chief, I want to go up and see the Inspector General. He said, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't? He said, you gotta have an appointment. I said, I got an appointment. He said, well, the keys are on the desk, or the table there. I didn't see you take them. So to make a damn bit of difference, he said, you're gonna get locked up and you can throw the key away. I said, we're locked up anyhow. I said, what are you talking about? I wanna get out of here. So I got in the Jeep, I went up to the Inspector General's office, knocked on the door, he said, come in. Opened the screen door and walked in, went up to the desk and I saluted him. And I stood at attention, I said, I'm PFC Reinhold, so-and-so, so-and-so, and this is what I'm here for. I told him, that discharged men with less points than we have, and I want to know what our status is. He never gave me an at ease. He opened his big book up, and he stood there, or sat there in his big leather chair, and looked me straight in the eye. And he leafed through this book, and he never once looked at that book. And finally he said, see, as far as I can tell, you've all been discharged. I made a great big smile. I said, thank you, sir. I said, I don't mind spending $5 to send a telegram to Senator Meade in Washington. He said, oh, he says, don't do that. I said, thank you, sir. And I clicked my heels, slammed the damn screen door in his face, and took off. I went back down to the orderly room and I told Kelly what I'd done. He said, he always called me mother in the office. He said, mother, you're going to get yourself locked up. For what? I said. I haven't done anything wrong. I just asked a question. I told him what I was going to do about it, and he answered his question, my question. What's wrong with her? Well, anyhow, we were sitting there, and he was berating me. He said, I can't help you if you get in trouble like that. Don't worry. Well, anyhow, went to work, and we're sitting there chatting away. Telephone rings. General Headquarters calling. Alert all men with 50 points and over, and call the discharge centers and find out if they can't take all the men that we have here. You have them on a train by noon. Have a discharge from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri by noon tomorrow or else. Well, I don't think I was ever as much scared as I was when I went back to the barracks and told the guys that they were going to go out the next day. I can't tell you what happened.
Why?
I can't tell you what happened. Don't ask me.
Yes, you can, because you told me before.
I'm not going to tell you now.
Isn't that when they all went wild and tore everything to pieces? That's the best part of the story.
Don't put that on tape.
Why?
I don't want it on tape.
No.
Don't. This is something that you don't do because, yes, the guys went wild. They did that. And we were of the troop. They put slap buckets and stuff in there and put us on boxcars and started sending us east. We got to what's the big city in Missouri? Oh, Jesus. Anyhow, we got to, no, I can't think of the name. Off the top, you shouldn't have got me all upset like that.
You get yourself upset.
What the heck is that? Capital of Missouri, what is it?
I don't know, Biloxi, that's Arkansas.
No. But anyhow, we got to this big city, and all the private trains were, we had to set on the siding till all day made there. So the next thing, another train pulls in there, was full of sailors. And they were rioting because, and they had sleepers and dining cars and everything. They were rioting because they didn't have butter on the table. And here we were the happiest so-and-sos in the world. We were going home on a freight train and on box cars cars and what you do with slot buckets. But they took it to Fort Meade and
Back to DC,
back to DC.
and they discharged you.
And they discharged.
And that's the end of the story.
And that story, right.
Well, I don't know why you don't want to put the rioting on tape.
Oh, no.
You've told me that.
I know I did.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It is a lot wrong with it.
No, there
because,
isn't. That was the tension that the Army built up on those men for holding them for so long. When they finally it was like a pressure
It was a
cooker.
terrible situation.
It was like letting the pressure cooker out of a, it's like suddenly letting the pressure out of a pressure
They
cooker.
let the pressure off. Every which way that you could think of.
I know, so the shit hit the fan. I mean,
Yeah.
what can you say?
But
That's what
anyhow,
happens.
Yeah.
So,
But, yeah, that was a terrible situation, yeah.
well, we'll end this here, because Mom said she wants to take a nap.